It's the end of the year, and my Porsche has a problem. Her engine needs an overhaul from top to bottom. Now that I have time to assist, I fear her size cannot be dismissed. In order to navigate her immense circumference, her love handles must disappear into non-existence. So with a zip-zap from my wrench, off came her flanks without a clench.
Easy.
50 pounds was exercised, and now she's a much smaller size. So with the last obstacle mitigated, the real work can be expedited. There's so much to do with her engine innards that only hope and a prayer will move us forwards. So cheers to again hearing Pepper sing, and to all what 2022 will bring.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Yogi's Garage. If this is your first time visiting Yogi's Garage, welcome. You're in for a treat. For my loyal subscribers, we're back with Project Pepper. My 2002 Porsche 911 Carrera the engine's out. We are done with the engine removal process, and now I got to start tearing this thing down. And as you saw in the intro, I already pulled the mufflers off of this thing, mainly because of the sheer width of it. I would not be able to rotate the engine upside down, nor would I want to with this much weight, but it opens up more options for me to get underneath the car, or to get underneath the engine, to remove the bolts attached to the intake manifold. But before I start rotating anything, I want to take the intake distributor or manifold off, and anything else related to that, perhaps the fuel rails. And as you saw in the intro again, the weight of those two mufflers is 50 pounds combined. So I'm thinking the intake manifold is not going to be 50 pounds. It'll probably be about 20 pounds, but still, that's more weight off of this engine. And any of the accessories that I can take off, I'll also do that too. But before I do any of that, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I'd love to bump my subscription count up quite a bit so that I can help fund more projects like this. Right now, this is all out of pocket for me. I'd love for that to change at some point. Anyway, let me show you the tools that I'll be using, how I plan on getting the manifold off, and then we'll get right to it. Let's do it. And like with anything you do, it's better to be safe than sorry. So I have my workshop manual that I downloaded. It's a pretty straightforward process, but what I like to do with workshop manuals is to get the real names, not the industry names or anything that's a pretty standard term for something, but I want to get the actual names of the parts so that it's easier to reference later in my videos as well as when I need to replace something. So it tells me all of the information that I need as far as what those parts are called. Really no instructions on how to take it apart. But hey, you've seen my other videos, you know taking it apart is the easy step. Putting it back together is the more challenging. As far as tools, I've got a multitude of tools, really not much here other than what I use for the muffler. But one thing that I'm learning as I become more and more comfortable with engine work is I've developed my own personal tool tray of sockets that gives me all the general tool sizes that I'll need, from 10 millimeter for some hose clamps, 7 and 8, for the triple square bolts, deep sockets, this is a spark plug, and then some larger ones for more of mounting points. But this is a good tip that I could give you, is to put all of your most used sockets in a couple of rails here. That way you don't keep going back and forth looking for stuff. You know where it's at. That's just a little tip of mine. I've got my motivator here just in case, a couple of breaker bars, and a 3/8 socket. So it's not going to be a big deal. And of course my impact wrench. I don't think it's going to be a big deal to get this intake manifold off. Now that I have full access to it, you can see that the bolts are all right here. They look like 10 millimeters, no big deal. And this of course separates from the center. So I'm going to get all of this figured out. I'm going to set you up on time lapse, and we're going to have fun tearing this engine down. Let's do it.
I want to kick this engine teardown video off by wishing everybody a happy new year. I wish you all the best, and stay healthy and stay safe, folks. As I'm narrating this video, I'm taking mental pictures of everything that I'm seeing, because I got to put all this back together at some point, don't I, huh? One of those 10 millimeter bolts is right behind the air oil separator. I need an extension or some type of angle to get in there, but it's not a big deal.
I've got all the bolts out of the intake manifold, I think, except for one. And that one is here on the end, and it's because of the air oil separator being in the way. I'm using just an open wrench here to get it going, and I could probably finish it off, no problem. But, you know, I don't want 10 minutes of time lapse of me doing this.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna argue about that. So with the magic of video editing, poof, let's get right to it.
All right, these were little 7s, in between 7 and 6 millimeter, and I actually had to use a screwdriver. Ugh, how archaic. All right, no big deal, disconnected. This guy should come right out. Ooh, that smells like water. Now let's talk about the purpose of the air oil separator, shall we?
Simply put, the air oil separator is an emissions device, and it collects any leftover oil gases and vapors within the crankcase and directs them back to the intake manifold. So let's illustrate the process of how it can work, and more importantly, let's illustrate the process in the event of things going horribly wrong. By taking advantage of the vacuum generated by the engine, oil-laced vapor is pulled from the crankcase in 2 separate locations into the center of the air oil separator. At the same time, warm coolant is pumped through the AOS diaphragm at the top. This prevents any moisture that was pulled from the crankcase from freezing inside of the delicate parts of the AOS. Inside the AOS itself, the oil and vapor are spun around inside of that funnel-shaped can until the centrifugal force causes the oil to drip back into the crankcase. If the AOS experiences a critical failure, the diaphragm that's responsible for separating the coolant from the vacuum vapor process may fail, thus allowing coolant to enter the oil vapor separation process and subsequently getting into the crankcase. This is a catastrophic engine failure situation called hydrolocking. It's unfortunate that such a simple mechanism can cause such damage to your engine, and it's compounded by the fact that it's very difficult to get to and may require a partial engine out to get your grubby mitts back there to replace it. There are third-party solutions out there that positions the diaphragm, which is typically what fails, near the front, making it an easier maintenance item to attend to. Wow, I really hope you liked that Yogi's Tech Tip segment. That took about 2 hours of my life to put that together. Anyway, back to taking out the manifold. We're almost there. We've got a few more bolts to take out. That power steering pump was a bit of a bear to get out. It's surrounded by an aluminum bracket. That didn't help matters much. Plus, it's also leaking power steering fluid because all the ports are open. So in the process of getting that out, I'm also putting a can underneath the outlet so that I can capture all the fluid coming out. When you're peeling back an onion like this, oftentimes there's wiring harnesses, tubing, and brackets in your way. So I'm moving some of that out of the way so I can get this pump out of here. It's taking too long. Ah yes, victory. The bracket is out. Moving on. Pretty sure taking off that starter relieved about 5 to 10 pounds off my engine stand. Man, I'm never gonna finish this video. There's so much to show you. Okay, check it out. This squiggly line that covers the entire width of the engine is the wiring harness. I'm disconnecting the ignition coils as well as the power to the individual fuel injectors. The harness is snaked underneath the fuel rails on both sides, so you'll see me disconnecting it from the injectors as well as snaking it out from behind the rails. I'm also making a note here that I'll have to put the wiring harness back on before I install the fuel rail again. This vacuum tube that travels from bank 1 to bank 2 is what connected to the air oil separator. The oil cooler leverages a combination of radiator fins and engine coolant to help keep the oil at optimal temperatures. This here is the air tank, and the silver thing is a valve that's all part of the secondary air pump system. That air pump was the black box that I took out of the back of the car during the engine takeout. Last but not least, the oil dipstick. See ya.
And here we are. The top is almost completely taken apart. But I thought I'd pause for a moment and show you the carnage in here. Yeah, you'll see some green in here because that's the coolant. And for my Porsche aficionados out there, you know that's the wrong coolant. They're using some type of generic coolant from AutoZone. It looked pretty clean, so I'm glad I pulled it out when I did. But this should be G40. It should be pink. So that is absolutely wrong. This is where the oil cooler was. You can see the O-rings. I don't know if you can see that here, but the O-rings are pretty flat. Nevertheless, a lot of this stuff is going to be replaced, but the majority of this is power steering fluid, I'm pretty sure. The color of the power steering fluid is sort of an amber or brownish color, and yeah, it's all over the top of the crankcase here. But all in all, you can see that this car needs quite a bit of work. This is where the air oil separator, no, this is the breather hose. The air oil separator is over here where that was. So I think I rescued this engine in the nick of time. I've removed the wiring harnesses. You can see that. I have the fuel rail here and the fuel lines themselves that I need to take off, but I think they go with the fuel rail. At least I hope they do. But I hope they sell the part because this fuel line here is cut. Don't ask. So I've got some more work to do, but I think this is a good spot to turn this engine upside down and get the rest of the exhaust assembly off the car so I can get to the water pump and the rest of this stuff over here. I don't know what that is. And you notice I don't have my intakes plugged up. There's really no reason to plug your intakes because I'm rebuilding the cylinder head anyway on both sides. So all of this will be hot tanked. More than likely, I'll hot tank the crankcase as well, so that means all of this is going to come apart. I'm not sure. We'll see.
With the help from my good friend Jeff, I was able to flip this engine over so I could get to the exhaust pipes and get those out. Thanks, Jeff.
Keep going. Yep. 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 Go for it. All the way if you can.
It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up.
What? One of the bolts popped out. Okay, we don't have a choice. We gotta keep going. Just watch your feet, okay? Yep. Just watch your feet. All right. Hold tight, hold tight. Okay, I got it. I got it. All right, hands off. Okay, the engine is upside down now. And as you saw in the video, and you may have not have noticed, but I paused for a moment because one of the bolts popped out of the support, and it's this one right here. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal, and I put another one in there, and the majority of the threads in this point here have stripped out. Yeah, so now we can have a better look at the underside. I'm a little concerned about that. The weight is resting on that bolt, so it's not gonna fall over, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm trying to get this engine stripped down as quickly as possible so I can get the weight reduced on the stand, but I think I'm in a good place. But take a look at some of the damage that I discovered under here. I mean, I knew about it already, but now I have a better look at it. And you can see that at some point the previous owner or whoever bottomed out here, and in the process of bottoming out, they broke off every single bracket here that holds this coolant pipe in place. So that's all got to be replaced. But my whole goal here is to pop the exhaust off. And at this point, I've been soaking these bolts in my rust remover. This stuff here has been really good to me. It has solved a lot of problems with my rusty bolts on the interior of the car as well as on the engine. I'm pretty confident that I can rip those bolts out. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take the exhaust off and finish up on the underside so I can flip this girl over. All right, well, that wasn't too bad. Not a whole lot of trouble, but there was some. You can see that I have some of that rust remover back on the cylinder head because guess what? Got one here. People looking at that are probably going, that's not too bad. That's above the cylinder head, so that's doable, right? Well, then I have this one, which is a little bit raised above it, but it's so interesting. I could feel the bolt stretching as I'm loosening it, and it's like stretching clay or something. It's interesting, but nevertheless, I got to get those two bolts out. I think I have solutions for that. It's not the first time I've had to take care of that. But what I want to talk to you now before we continue tearing this engine down is how much weight did I take off of this engine block before I turned it over, and then how much total did I get off of this engine and its current state. So the mufflers themselves were 24.8 pounds each. So just by taking the mufflers off, I reduced the weight on the stand and on the engine by 50 pounds almost. If you add in the bolts or whatever, I'd probably get to 50 pounds, no problem. But get this, the total weight savings by taking off everything that I did, the wiring harnesses, the alternator, the starter, everything, I took off 164 pounds off of this engine block. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. So by taking 164 pounds off, I've relieved the pressure on my stand. As I mentioned, this bolt here is giving me trouble. But yeah, 164 pounds, that's just insane. Still a lot more to take off this car, but you can see it's a lot smaller, and this tray right here is a lifesaver for your floors. A little bit of fluid has gotten around this, but you can see how much I was able to capture using this thing. I picked this up at Jegs, Jeggs. Great site for hot rodders, great site for, it's like a Harbor Freight online basically with parts and tools and stuff. But nevertheless, I picked that up. Amazon had one which got trash reviews, so this was the best thing to do, was to grab it from Jegs, and it fits perfectly because a lot of times these engine stands are basically rebranded. This big red Jax is basically rebranded a Jegs stand, so you know it's all the same. It all comes from the same Chinese factory. So anyway, let's get back to work. And here's all the components that I took off. Most of them anyway. I think I have a few bolts over there on my workbench. But you can see here are the mufflers. Like I said, 24.8 pounds each. The intake manifold was about 10 pounds. Each individual each individual downpipe, manifold, and catalytic converter was 20 pounds each. This bracket itself here is 10 pounds, if you can believe that. And then here is about 44 pounds worth of components. There's an oil cooler in there, there's an alternator, as well as a power steering pump. So a lot of weight here, 164 pounds. Crazy. You need to put this girl on a diet.
In case you're wondering, that sump is so shiny because I polished it up when I initially did my bore scoring video.
Oh.
Thanks, Yogi Mama. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I think at this point I'm saying a prayer or something before I flip this girl over one more time.
This looks like a pretty new water pump. There's really not a whole lot to these water pumps. It's just a impeller. Yep. Nice and clean in there. All right, we've got a few more things to take off here on the top. I want to get the fuel rails off of the injectors. I think it'd be better if I get the injectors out of these riser manifolds before I disconnect them. That way I have more leverage and I can use my fuel injector puller to get these out. These run about $40 to $60 each, so you gotta be really careful. I plan on replacing these. However, there's been a shortage like we all know, so it's important that I maintain the integrity of the ones that I have until I can get replacements. All right, so the first thing I wanna do to get these fuel injectors out is obviously get the fuel rail disconnected. So my thought is to get the bracket off of here, and I've already done this one here. So I'm gonna show you on another one here. Turn the light on, there you go. And basically you just push it forward to disengage this metal clip. And then you can see it probably sits with a O-ring in there. So once I get them all off and I disconnect the rail, I should be able to just pop those off. All right, fuel rail is loosened on this side and you can immediately see that it's nice and loose. So these should just come right up here. And I want to use some equal pressure and just kind of break them free. There is a tool for this and I may actually do that. I may break the rail free, but don't be surprised if you see a bunch of fuel come out of here. I don't think there's a whole lot left, but there may be some. This one's not done yet, so I'll zip that off too. I've already taken the bracket off here. So I'm gonna start by pulling this one and then I'll move on to the next one. All right, injectors are out. I won some and I lost some, meaning that most of them came out. We had one that decided to stay in, but boy, I gotta tell you, it's a good thing I pulled this because these fuel injectors are due. You can see that the O-rings are pretty, I don't know if you can tell, but you can hear that. They're real grimy. And then you can see the stuff that I'm pulling off of them. And so like this one here, you can see how bad that is. The O-ring is about ready to go. These are all oxidized, pretty firm. I'm gonna clean these up. Now, there should be an O-ring here, and they're usually there, but because the other one came off, the rail, which is, where did I move that? Oh, the rail's right here. You can see that the O-ring is stuck in there. But before I put all this back, these either with these injectors or with the Bosch replacements, I am gonna clean these up and run some cleaning solution through the injector, charge them up, and spray out these holes to make this engine run like new. So lots of little cleaning things I gotta do, but obviously before I do that, we gotta keep chugging along, baby. Let's do it. I'm not even sure what to make of this. This is on bank 1, and it is a buildup of mud and grime. And what makes this interesting or concerning, depending on how you want to look at it, is that it's really high up on the engine. So yeah, I'm expecting a surprise. I'm looking at the intake gaskets here, and this is on 2, I believe, or 1, doesn't matter. But you can see the corrosion happening here in between. So it sits like this. Your gasket will sit right here, and you can see the corrosion was already starting to seep in. So I'm going to continue to convince myself that I think I rescued this car in the nick of time. This was going to be a complete and total failure of just at all levels, maintenance, all kinds. So this is good. All right, let's go back to work. All right, now we're getting to some serious business here. You start messing with cylinder heads and slowly breaking down an engine, you gotta stay organized. So I've done this. I've set up a cardboard, some extra cardboard that I have from all the Christmas gifts that we're getting and wrapping or whatever. Anyway, bank 1, bank 2. I'm gonna start with bank 2 since it's over here. I'm gonna turn this guy 90 degrees and start taking it apart, starting with the valve cover. Let's get it going, man.
That's the oil pressure sender there I'm unscrewing. According to my calculations, there are 23 valve cover bolts per cylinder head.
All right, I zipped off 20 10mm bolts off the cylinder cover here, and I'm gonna pry it open. I think I got everything else off. I've got the VarioCam Plus sensor off. I've got all the other sensors off, cam position sensor. So I am ready to pop this thing. And like anything that has RTV on it, there's typically pry points that you can leverage. Like this is a pry point. And what you want to do is you want to slowly do it diagonally. You don't want to pull from one side because, here's another one right here, because you're asking for trouble. You're asking for a warped cover. And this is all aluminum, so you need to be extra careful. So I'm just going to start right here and just give it a little. And I've got a short lever, so I'm not putting a whole lot of power down. I've actually broken these lips off before, not on a Porsche, but on an Audi. So it was a lot cheaper to fix. Yeah, let's try a different approach. There we go, reverse it. All right, let's take it off. All right, stick my fingers in it like a 6-pack, pull it straight up. All right, let's take a look at it, huh? So I'm gonna put this on my bank 2 side. And we'll figure out all the positioning on it. And like I said, there was 20 bolts, and there they are right there. Here we go. Just a quick visual inspection of 4, 5, and 6 here. Just to want to make sure that there's nothing outrageous going on with these cam lobes. Everything looks good. This is the exhaust side right here. Intake. One of the things that you need to make sure that you capture when you're taking this thing apart are these numbers here and the letters, right? I mean, if you know what the cams look like, you know what an exhaust cam versus an intake cam looks like. But the carriers and these actual girdles, or whatever you want to call this here, there's different names for all of these. There's a number on here that coincides with the number on this one here. And that number is 8175. And it also matches the number on the cylinder head, because all of this is manufactured together at Stuttgart. Yeah, so getting these numbers is very important. Be sure to take pictures of all of this so you know where all of these go. You can see this says 1 alpha, and this is 2 alpha. And the same thing here, there's an echo. Now you would think that E would be exhaust, right? But it's not. I believe that's German. So actually A is exhaust, and you can tell that from here. There's the exhaust. And then the other side is the intake side, which I think is really cool looking. I don't think I've ever seen cam lobes like this. So anyway, yeah, so these numbers here all match. So when you put it all back together, you make sure you put all of these pieces back together. All right, I was having a heck of a time trying to find the chain tensioner on bank 2, because according to the workshop manual, and I'll show it to you right here, unscrew chain tensioner, bank 4, 5, and 6, identification on, without, I guess. And if you look at that, that looks like a 32 mil socket like it is on bank 1, 2, and 3, but it's not. So the workshop manual may be for an older model, but it's actually a hex, and it is a big hex. I think it's, let's take a look at this here. Yeah, it's a 14 millimeter right there. So I'm gonna pop this out so I can loosen, because I spent like, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes trying to figure out, am I losing my mind? You know? So let's see. There we go. Yeah, because if I couldn't get that off, there's no way I'm going to get this cam off. The cam's off because the chain's too tight. So yeah, there we go. I don't have my gloves on, so I don't want to touch that just yet. All right, that wasn't too bad. Okay, so now I've got to get the hydraulic lifters out of there. They're just seated in there, but it's important that you keep track of which lifters came out of which cylinder. And this is the crank side or the pulley side of the engine. So this would be 4, 5, and 6. And I just gave away my spoiler, and boom. This is probably, and again, speaking of man in the garage, thanks again. I'm sure he got this from somebody else, but this is probably the best way to organize your hydraulic lifters. And there's 12 of them. This is an 18, so I'll have a little bit extra, but I got a couple of them that I'll be using.
You can see that I'm using my brake cleaner here, and that's because I'm trying to find any extra bolts that I may have missed because this cylinder head isn't budging yet. I eventually realized that the bolt that I'm looking for is inside of the cylinder head behind the chain tensioner. I think I knew that.
I did miss a couple of bolts on the outside, 1, 2, 3 of the 5 millimeter Allen heads, and then there's one more for some reason inside that I missed. But I took my time, did a little bit of prying, isolated where it was still hung up, and then I found the bolt, no big deal. So looking at the pistons, not too bad. I tell you, they looked a lot worse using my boroscope. Everything else looks fine. The dowels are in place, 1, 2. Yeah, not too bad. I took a lot of the weight off. There's the cylinder head there. We'll go over that in a future video on rebuilding that. But right now, I want to flip this girl over and get the other side. So we're not done.
All right, I'm not going to bore you here with the same sequence of events. There are a few things differently, which I will talk about here in a minute. But for the sake of continuity, I'm going to leave this footage here. is the second time I'm trying to keep the bolts in the carrier as I take it out, but I end up having to use my tool over and over again because they're still tight.
Okay, almost complete with bank 1. I did bank 2 first. There's a bit of a difference here. There is a large chain tensioner guide rail, and it sits somewhat like this, straight down in here. There are 2 guide pins here, and then one here. Let me see if I can get in there. Yeah, right in there. You can see, there. Yeah, so these 2 have to be taken out in order to get this thing out. And the reason you have to do that is because there's another Allen down there. And there's another Torx head way down there, but that looks like that's part of the shell and not the cylinder head. But for sure, that one right there needs to come out. And then poof, this thing will pop right out, and we'll be looking at just the block. Let's take a look. All right, I've got my cherry picker back out here, as you can see, and I've got it wrapped around the engine block. And I'm ready to get it off of the stand because I want to break the shell open. So in order to crack the shell open, I got to get it off of the stand. I already got the weight on the ratchet strap, so I'm ready to get the stand off. All right, it's a little on the heavy side, and it's mainly because of these right here. This bracket here is pretty heavy. Hopefully you can see that. That one's really on there. And some of them are off. Like this one here is on a busted thread. Yeah, and I don't know if you can see this. The threads broke off on the transmission mount, and I'm going to have to use some type of helicoil or something to get that back together. In case you're wondering, I've already popped off the crank bolt. I was able to use my impact ratchet for that, no big deal. Okay. This thing's gonna get heavy. There we go. That one's really on there, so I don't want to hurt it any more than it already is, and that's a 14. Okay. All right, and as you can see, it's better balanced. So I'm going to get a folding table underneath this thing and lay it right on top of the table. I just got to figure out where I'm going to put it. All right, I've got it where I need it to be, but I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to get the cherry picker out of the way. I'm hoping it's not too heavy that I can get another person to help me move this out of the way so I can put the cherry picker back over there along the wall. But right now, I'm going to see if I can get this on the table. I'm going to leave the straps on for as long as possible, just to make sure that this table can handle this weight. Who knows? I'm not sure. So here we go. I just want to make sure that none of the chains or anything are underneath. Okay, that looks good right there. Make sure it can hold it. Oof. And it's dipping pretty low in the middle. Yeah, this is not going to work. It's too much weight. What to do? Okay, I think I'm going to use one of my Husky roller lockers here. I know it can hold the weight, no problem. What I'm probably going to do is put the other one, I have two of them, and put the other one back to back and use a ratchet strap all the way around to hold them together. The only problem with that is that it'll block access to my cabinets, But I don't think I need to do that just yet. I may be able to just do everything I need to do on this narrow surface. I'm not entirely sure yet, but for right now, let's go ahead and get this down and confirm that this will work just fine on this stand. You can hear it breaking the cardboard, but that's gonna hold it. Will it roll? Yep, it'll roll. All right. And it's not gonna tip forward, not gonna tip back. I think this is where I'm gonna leave it. Tell you what, if you don't have a set of ratchet straps in your garage, then you're not a real mechanic. No, I'm just kidding. But it certainly helps, as you can see, to get things done, to have ratchet straps at the ready. And it does appear that I may have to leave the strap on the engine until, yeah, it's under. Pretty good. All right, I'm back at it. It's a couple days after Christmas, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. I have to get the bolts open from all the way around this thing, so I need to reduce some more weight before I'm able to flip this thing onto its side. All right, so let's crack this baby open, huh? Let's do it.
The thermostat and oil pump are the first things I need to get off before I can open the case. As usual, everything is 10 millimeters. They might all be 10 millimeters, but they're not all the same length. So here I'm using my caliper and my notebook to keep track of where the bolts came from and how long they are. There's a spring-loaded piston there that I believe is used to keep tension on the oil pump sprocket, but I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me in the comments below. There are a couple of different techniques that I'm using here to get those stud bolts off. First, I'm using these Milwaukee needle nose pliers to get a good grip on the unthreaded portion of the stud. I'll use my screwdriver to tighten it up so I have a bite into the metal, and I'm breaking them loose that way. Afterwards, my wife suggested that I use a ratcheting wrench instead of trying to loosen the bolts themselves using the vice grip. Makes a lot of sense to me. Thanks again, Yogi Mama.
It is the day before New Year's Eve. I know there's some gaps in my videos, and I apologize about that, but you know, life must go on. Anyway, I'm near the end. I'm gonna take off a few more items on top, start zipping off all of these bolts all the way around. When I turn it over to the side, oh, I'm also gonna get the guide rails out too. I did mention that I was gonna flip it over and make sure the guide rail's clear. Now that I have access to the back of the engine, I can get in there and unbolt the guide rail as soon as I figure out where it is. Ah, right there, I found it. Okay, so I can get that guide rail off. And on this side, there's another guide rail pin right here. So yeah, and then there's a couple of more that I gotta take off where the crankcase bolts to the bearing carrier. And that is basically the heart of the engine. That's where I'm getting to. And then I'll stop the video at that point because it's a lot of content, I know. But I wanna get a video out before the end of the year, and I'm running out of time. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn on the spotlight, set you up on both cameras, time lapse, and let's get it cracked open. Let's get it going. Tired of this. All right. The holy spotlight. Even my time lapse camera does not like all of the light, but too bad, man. We need the light. All right. Can you see me? Beautiful. Hey, I want to wish everybody a Happy New Year, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. I hope 2022 will bring you happiness and joy more than 2021 did. I know a lot of people lost friends and family due to the coronavirus, and our thoughts are with you guys. 2022 is you know, with New Year's, it's always a good feeling, you know, to look forward to something, looking forward to no COVID, looking forward to getting back with your family and all that good stuff. And so all you can do is hope that all of that happens. All right, I think I'm going to start with the IMS bearing and work on that. And I'm going to unlock the wheels because I want to rotate it to you guys so you can see what I'm doing and not just, you know, looking at my back. There. This IMS is an E-Torx or external Torx or whatever you want to call it, but that's what it is. And for those of you, for one of you who doesn't know what an IMS bearing is, it is the intermediate shaft bearing, and it runs the length of the crankcase, and it basically connects the chains from the front to the back. There. Nice and slow. These should not be under a whole lot of torque. You know, and this is just the IMS cover. So it's not the IMS. Don't like to waste time. If I can use a power tool, right? They gave me some pry points using 2 pry bars instead of 1. Kind of work it from the top and the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and take that bolt off. It looks like a 13 or a 15 actually. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I don't know. So why not? Try the 2 pry bar approach again. And there it goes. Okay. All right. All right. We're going to see this IMS bearing sooner than later. But I'm going to get some close-up of this with my iPhone. So let's do that. All right, now that I've taken the IMS bearing cover off, I now have full access to the IMS bearing. So it's smooth as glass. Man, this is good. I should be able to just put that right back in when I'm done, and keep my fingers crossed that that's the case. Now I'm going to get these guide rails off. All right. Yeah. This engine wants to come apart. It's cooperating. There we go. All right. And this is bank 1. So this chain rail will go on the bank 1 side of my table over there. And I am extremely pleased that these chain rails are in very good shape. I mean, these look, I hate to say newish. And there's this one. Yeah, we're talking maybe 9, 10 foot-pounds holding this in, so not a lot. Okay, and this is bank 2. Like I said earlier, stay organized. Oh, what is this? Okay, it's a special RTB seal on this IMS cover by EPS. So I understand these aren't the most expensive brands out there, nor are they considered the best, but it's done the job. The bearing you saw is spinning quite easily. Can't complain. It's better than spending thousands of dollars to have somebody do it for you if it's already done. I think if the seller would have known that this car had an IMS solution already, they may have actually asked for more, even though the car's condition really didn't justify it. Another bank 2. Again, the rail is beautiful. No chips, nothing. Looking good. These accessory brackets, it looks like, we all know is a 10. Everything is a 10 on this car, pretty much. take that pulley off in order to get this whole thing off. 13. Yep. I'm keeping the pulleys and bolts and stuff on my workbench on this side. One more. I got that. Two more hiding right here. I didn't even see. Right. All right. Nice, 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 nice. Another gasket. This guy's going to get a workout. Let's check my battery level. Where's my battery at? 2. Okay. That's good enough, I guess. So I know there's some crankcase bolts here that are holding the bearing carrier in place. So I guess I should get those out while I'm in there. I like to keep my tools organized. And if I'm not working on anything for several days, I'll just come into the garage and start. And I'll start putting tools away. Mother Mary of God. Need a breaker bar. All right, stand aside, little fella. Damn. Okay. It popped loose, but it took my wobble socket with it. All right, good enough. Thank you, Mr. Breaker Bar.
Most of the bolts holding the crankcase together are 10 millimeter. However, Porsche snuck in a couple of E-Torques as well that are on the back where the transmission mates, as well as a couple more underneath that I'll show you. Most of the time I prefer using my sticky grip mats, but oftentimes when I'm working in a confined area like this, I like my magnet tray to hold my bolts.
All right, you missed some excitement, but nothing too much. My camera decided to, ow, that's my toe. My camera decided to overheat again. That's the problem with these GoPros. When you're recording in 4K and 60 frames a second, and you have a case on it, and that case is, a GoPro case, it overheats it. So GoPros are really good for short action clips, but if you're doing video segments like I'm doing with multiple cuts and all that, it's not ideal. So that's what you want. You're probably better off with an iPhone. I could have saved like $600-700 on cameras if I would have just stayed with iPhone or something similar. All right, I'm gonna rotate this thing 90 degrees onto whatever side and get at the sump, and I need to get the return something or other. I forgot. I have to get some stuff out of there first. So basically, let's see if I can do this without hurting myself. I already hurt my toe. Okay, and I'm just getting this big boy 90 degrees. Shouldn't be that hard. Real close here. I have plenty of room here. All right. Stay where you are, chain. Okay. Woo, that was close. Yeah, so I got to get these Venturi returns out, the pickup, and then crack all these bolts out, and man, we'd be done. There's so many of them. So let me get back to that, clean up this oil before it gets all over the floor. Man, these things are still leaking oil everywhere. You think the Porsche family's favorite number was 10? Because everything in here is just about 10 millimeter. And I find that pretty hilarious. Let me get these brakes off. Now, going angle again because I want to do some time lapsing too. More 10 millimeters, but I'm going to get this oil system out of here first. That is probably the smallest pickup I've ever seen. Looks great, man. I mean, the O-ring is a little flat, but the inside of it is completely, well, not completely. There's maybe a speck or two in there, but nothing too crazy. So that's good. Part of this. I'm right-handed. There. Okay. And a few more 10 mils. Yeah, you know, I'm upgrading these, actually. I'm getting rid of these and going with the 997 version of these. Less gurgling going on, and I believe it's just a straight pipe instead of a venturi. So it eliminates any type of cavitation that may be happening, I think. But I bought them. They were cheap. It's worth the upgrade, folks. If there's better parts out there on a newer model, we might as well put them on there. At least that's how I feel. Coolio, man. Some kind of sensor or something. Cool. Man, I can see the guts. We're getting close. We're getting close. I love it. I'm going to turn you off before this thing overheats. There's always something missed, and it looks like I missed something right here. I'm not sure what that goes to. This is the IMS section, so it could be a tensioner. I mean, that's exactly what I think it is. So just gotta pop this sucker loose. Ooh, that's what's moving, not the cabinet. All right. Let me see if I can jar it loose with my impact. No, or just pop it loose with my impact. That's a 32 mil. Yeah, it is a tensioner with a big crush washer. And that is on bank 2. Another bank 2. But I think I've got all the bolts off, but this girl ain't willing to open up for me. Oh, there it goes. That's what it was. It was the tensioner. Okay. There. All right. So now just pull straight up, but you know, I'm not Hercules here, so I'm gonna need to get a ladder or a step ladder and get the height leverage that I need and pop it right off and hope that I don't embarrass myself. There. Aren't you pretty? It's like you're ready to go, baby. All right, let's get set up. I'll be right back. All right, I just had to give it a little bit of encouragement to open up for me. Yeah, one of the piston rings was hanging up and I had to get it disconnected. Okay. All right. Pistons. Okay, now I can just take this, place it right here. Woo! Man, that was heavy. All right, the other one's gonna be a little easier, I think. Well, half of it's exposed. Let's take a closer look. Okay, here you go. Here's the crank. This is the IMS right here. This is the other side of the IMS with the chains going to bank 2. I'm looking at this right here. This is part of that, I think it's part of that EPS thing that was leaking. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but yeah, this EPS thing, probably not all that great because it was leaking from the rear main seal. I'll have to take that down, but yeah, that's what it is. It's this whole little sleeve here, but it looks like maybe some oil got through on that gouge right there, and that's all she wrote. It will leak. I don't know. We'll see. All right, pistons. Well, this is going to be good. The piston rings look great. Really, really good. Okay, so this would be 4, 5, and 6. Looking for Signs of bore scoring. Nada. Oh man, this is gonna be good, I think. Got a lot of things to do. Gotta make sure they're in round. I got, a lot of testing to do to make sure these are within spec, the pistons and the clearance and the tolerances, all that. But that's for another day. Let's keep taking this thing apart, man. We're getting real close. All right, there you go. I've been running time lapse on that. You saw that I got my youngest son, Hunter, to help me lift it out. I initially tried to do the whole operation here on top, but this is just way too tall for us to get the proper leverage to lift up with all of our might. So, as you saw, I moved everything down, and we worked at it from down here. So I set that up. My wife held down this half of the shell, and Hunter and I lifted the rest of the bearing carrier out and set it up here on the workbench. And looking at things, it looks pretty good. I have a few concerns, nothing too crazy, but if you look here, there's, a little bit of gouging going on that one, but this one seems to be the worst. There's a little bit of it here. And this is bank 1 here, by the way. Yeah, bank 1. It's interesting is the coatings that are on the piston skirts are in really good shape. Overall, they look really good. What's even better is the actual cylinders themselves look really good. Got to get on my knees. No bore scoring, however, there are some wear marks. Yeah, so here, there's a gouge, and I can run my fingernail through it, but it's really light. I mean, not very deep at all. I'm just wondering if some grime got up in the piston ring and started scoring the cylinder. Now this one here on the other side, this is bank 1. These look really, really good. And keep in mind, this car has got 102,000 miles on it. So no bore scoring here, man. Looks good. In fact, I think the piston rings themselves are in really good shape. I don't believe I'm going to need to be doing anything to those. There's absolutely no snags or anything like that on the rings. The oil ring looks really good. It looks like it could use a cleaning. No big deal. I can clean all that. And I don't need to buy new piston rings. That's good. Each set of piston rings is about $40 to $45, and it may be going up because of inflation. And as far as the skirts are concerned, that gouge's a little concerning. Maybe some metal got up in there in the oil. I'm not sure. But I'm not too worried. The rings are nice. I'm really happy about that. Rings are real nice. All right, we're almost to the end, man. I want to get these pistons out because I need to look at the bearings on the rods as well as on the crank. We're almost done. It looks like some 12-point bolts here as well on the connecting rods. And I'm going to take the pistons out before I open up the bearing carrier. That's typically how you should handle that. So we're going to do the connecting rods first. You're turning up roses, man. I love it when I see good news. Pistons look great. As I mentioned, the bearings after 100,000 miles, I think Olaf had worse bearings. Granted, that one had 140, but it's not a high performance, high revving engine like a boxer engine. I'm gonna run this by, some experts and get their honest opinion. Of course, I expect them to say, hey, while you're in there, but hey, I invented that. So I don't want to do it while I'm in here. If these bearings still have life on them, which they do, they just look a little worn, I may keep them. You're like, well, you're already at the crank, man. Why? Because a set of bearings runs about $500. That's why. And again, it's a Carrera. I'm not discounting what kind of car it is, but it's not a Carrera S. It's not a turbo. It's none of the Mesker engines. Was used as the daily driver. I'm just trying to save it. Anyway, bearings look great. Nothing too shocking. I may replace them. I don't know. I'm wishy-washy on that. I just don't want people judging my craftsmanship and say, hey, well, you could have done the bearings. Well, I know I could have, man, but why? Anyway, let's finish this up. I'm going to get the crank out of there, take a look at it, and then we'll end the video. Okay. I know I said I wouldn't replace the bearings, but I didn't say I wouldn't replace the crank bearings. No, seriously. After looking at these bearings, yeah. They're not, shredded, they're not spun, they're just worn. 140,000 miles, excuse me, I said 140. 102,000 miles on a high performance engine. Yep, I can see that. Nothing serious. They should look like this, not dark in color, more of like an unpolished metal finish, kind of cloudy. But the wear is also interesting. You can see the wear marks are more intense on the insides of all these bearings. I wonder what that means. If you guys know what that means, please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Because look, these are all on the inside. Now these inside, so both of these, but not there, which is interesting. I don't know if that means anything. Now the journals itself on the crank, they look great. No scratches, no scorching, nothing. This looks great. And as I mentioned over here on the pistons, piston bearings, yeah, I guess, let me put them under the light. Yeah, say it with me. While I'm in there, might as well go ahead and take care of it. We've reached the end, folks. Wow. We did it. We reached the end. You see that the engine's in, I'm going to say it, the engine's in good to great shape. It needs some maintenance, yes. The bearings, yes, could probably go another 50,000 miles, but I don't know about you, I don't want to take the engine out after 50,000 miles and redo the bearings because I'm already here. I might as well go ahead and take care of it. It's the kiss of death, man. I can't get away from it. That's why I did the video. And if you haven't seen the video on While You're In There syndrome, it's a real thing. Be sure to click that pop-up banner above so you can get that video and check it out yourself because it's the truth, I'm telling you. All right, so hey man, we're done. The engine is completely broken down, every nut and bolt taken off. My 2002 Porsche 911, right before the end of 2021, my goals have been accomplished. I wish I could get more goals, like 1,000 subscribers, but I need your help for that. So this is the end of this video. I apologize for it taking so long, but I wanted to share with you a complete engine breakdown on this 3.6 liter engine and see what it's like to tear open an engine and don't stop until you get to the crank. So thanks for watching Yogi's Garage. Hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs down, but tell me why. You know the drill. Happy New Year to everybody. Happy Kwanzaa, happy all holidays to you. We'll see you in 2022.
Yo, microphone check, make it a microphone check. Give it a microphone, make it a microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie, I could truly be moody. I could have played the fucking Grinch.